Hey everyone, welcome to TalentBin webinar number 11. My name's Dave. I'm on the Product Specialist team here at TalentBin, and today we're going to talk about candidate data. And as you can see, the theme is Star Wars, so it should be pretty fun. The whole goal really is after this webinar, we want you to be comfortable with all of the candidate data that TalentBin gives you. More importantly, we want you to be able to quickly leverage that data. So, rather than defaulting to what we're comfortable with, like a LinkedIn, and kind of being singular in our approach, we want to give you everything you need to quickly personalize your outreach, differentiate your outreach so that you're driving meaningful conversations. The results, your response rate will go up. You will get more, you will increase your passive candidate placements. So, big topic, a lot to cover. Let's jump into it. So quick intro, like why are we here? Why do we use TalentBin? What do we want to do? Pretty much it's increased passive candidate placements, right? We all know that there's a war for talent. It's extremely competitive. Companies are doing everything they can to hire and retain top talent. And so there's just not enough active candidates out there for us to go through resumes and pick out the people we like, right? We need to go out and engage passive candidates. We need to start meaningful conversations with these candidates. So I kind of just mentioned it. What do we need to do? Start productive conversations. This is the mindset for TalentBin. When you sign into TalentBin, you need to come into the tool with one objective. Like, I'm here to start productive conversations. You don't want to spend too much time filtering out candidates if they don't have perfect information. You want to take what's out there, engage that person, start a conversation, which at some point will lead to a resume. It will lead to a future opportunity. It will lead to a referral. All good things when it comes to recruiting. So if this is our goal, how do we do it? There's 4 things. We see this on the TalentBin team. We see this all the time. If you're recruiting on TalentBin and you do these 4 things, you will be reporting hires. You will be reporting placements of passive candidates. So 1, we have to personalize our outreach. We cannot send generic messages to candidates who are not looking for a job, right? These candidates have jobs, they have job offers. We need to differentiate our outreach. We need to reach out on a personal level and build a relationship. Number 2, we need to explain why our opportunity is a good opportunity. We can't just say, hey, I have a bunch of great opportunities, let's connect, right? We need to talk about why our opportunities are great. Is it the culture? Is it the mission, the product, the challenges, the team? We need to give the candidates something to get them excited. Number 3, it's still a numbers game. We need to reach out to 20 plus passive candidates per rec. And if we're recruiting for something competitive like DevOps in San Francisco, we're probably going to need to get that number up to 100 plus passive candidates per rec. It's just the nature of the beast. Tech war, it's on. So we've got to keep our numbers up. And the 4th thing that we have to do is we have to follow up with candidates who don't respond to our first message. And if you feel like you're doing these 4 things and not getting placements with TalentBin, I don't believe you. Call me, call one of your product specialists. We'll figure out what's going on. If you do these 4 things, you should be reporting placements with TalentBin. But here's the thing, like a lot of the recruiters who use TalentBin are having a hard time with these 4 things. It just takes too much time. Dave, I have 50 recs. And you know what? Everything's a fire. It takes me 10 minutes to personalize a message. There's no way I can get this done. So I hear you, loud and clear. Let's just think critically about the time we spend on each one of these. Number 4, follow up with candidates who don't respond. Guess what? TalentBin has automated follow-ups. So if you put a little bit of time up front and you design an effective campaign, which is message 2, message 3, message 4, design those up front, put them in a campaign, and then you never have to manually follow up with a candidate. It'll happen automatically. So TalentBin does this for you, okay? So we don't need to use this as an excuse. 30 minutes, set up the campaign, and we're done. Number 2 Explain why our job opportunity is unique and great. Well, this is hard. It requires some critical thinking. A lot of times we'll get a job description and it's all about what the company wants, and it doesn't do much to sell the candidate. And so we need to be aggressive with hiring managers, and we need to say like, hey, I got the job description, but what do you feel is unique about this opportunity? What do your people like about their day-to-day? What's different? Like, what can I use to get people excited about this? Is it the culture, the product, the mission? Like, what are you guys doing? What is going to get people excited? Once you get that information, guess what? We put it in our first outreach template, and we don't have to change that. So we can reach out to 20 candidates. We can reach out to 500 candidates. There's going to be no difference on the amount of time we spend doing this. So really, all we need to do is get good at number one. We need to drop this from 10 minutes down to 2 minutes. If we can get candidate data, find out a personal conversation starter in 2 minutes, then we should have the time to reach out to 20 plus passive candidates. So the goal for this webinar is to focus really heavily on number one, so that you're super fast at leveraging candidate data on TalentBin. How are we going to do that? We're going to look at 3 things. I know I've harped on it a bunch, but why is candidate data important? Number 2, I'm going to kind of go over all of the different data sources that TalentBin pulls candidate data from, and then I'm going to group it so you kind of have a mental framework in terms of like, how can you leverage these different groups of data sources. Number 3, we're just going to practice. We'll look at five different candidates, 5 different recs, and I will show you how to quickly determine the best data sources for each candidate, right? So within 30 seconds, we know where to focus, and then we can jump out to those data sources, and in 1 to 2 minutes, we can get a very, very good personalized conversation starter. So let's jump into it. Why is candidate data important? Number 1, it helps us qualify candidates, which is nice, but remember, with passive candidate recruiting, we're more concerned with starting conversations than filtering out resumes. We don't really have resumes yet. So more importantly, the value of candidate data is that it helps us create bonds. It allows us to reach out to a candidate in a way that will create a bond, it will create a relationship, and then from that, we'll have future opportunity, we will have resumes, we will have placements. And so the value is really to write good outreach emails, or however you end up reaching out to a candidate, whether it's on the phone, whether it's through LinkedIn or Twitter or email. Candidate data gives you the ability to personalize your outreach. And so let's look at all of the different sites that that TalentBin pulls in candidate data. It's almost overwhelming, right? It'd be very hard to learn everything about every one of these sites. But a couple things we can do, we can group these sites into buckets, right? We have portfolio and project related sites. So on these types of sites, you're gonna have the ability to look at candidates' work, the things that they're most invested in, right? It takes a lot of courage as a developer to build an app, to commit code to open source projects. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and we're heavily invested in it. So with sites like GitHub, and then for designers, you'll see Behance and Dribble. These are awesome sites to say, hey, I had a chance to check out specific project. It looks really cool. What inspired that? So these are great sites. There's also a bunch of question and answer sites that TalentBin pulls in data from. This is awesome because with these sites, you can kind of see how a candidate thinks. You can see how they've helped the community. So you can say things like, hey, I noticed your answers on StackOverflow have reached 1 million people. I love how helpful you've been to the community. Wanted to connect about a senior Ruby position or whatever it might be. So another great type of data source to reference. Then we have personal sites that are good for personal and professional interests. So like, and a lot of these are horizontal networks. Like we all know what Twitter is. Most of us know what Meetup is. Meetup's a site for local meetup groups. These sites are great for seeing what somebody likes to do in their spare time. Like, are they going to HTML5 meetups? Are they going to cooking meetups? Are they going to snowboard meetups? All this information is great to reference in your first outreach. We have sites that are background sites, so LinkedIn, About Me. Sometimes you'll run into a personal site on TalentBin. These are all great for finding resume-ish data. And then we have professional certifications. So we're also in the healthcare vertical as well as finance. And I have to be upfront, most of this webinar is going to be all about tech, because tech is where most of our users are. Healthcare and finance is still pretty new. We will be doing webinars for healthcare and finance in the future. So come back if that's all you're concerned with. You can come back in the future and we'll be more helpful at that point. Okay, so we know kind of all of the data sources, we've grouped them, but let's practice, right? So let's actually look at some candidate profiles on TalentBin. As you can see here on the left, we have Jamund Ferguson, and this is what his profile looks like on TalentBin. And the first step for us is to quickly determine the best data sources for this candidate. We don't want to randomly click out to all of these data sources to see where we can get information. We want to come down here to the skills section. We want to click on the skill set that we're interested in, and we want to look which web profiles, which networks is this data coming from. GitHub, he's watching projects on GitHub. Oh, he's contributed to the JavaScript repository Connect Mongo. This sounds like great information. So right away, as I scroll down this, you'll also see that he's on Lanyard, he's in Meetup. So I know that this is where I'm going to focus. I'm going to find something to personalize my outreach in 1 to 2 minutes from one of these sites, right? So I'm going to start with GitHub. And to be honest, like GitHub should be up there in your tool belt next to LinkedIn. And there's a few others, but it's definitely a site you want to know. It's the most popular site to build and collaborate on open source projects. So any type of technology that's open source, JavaScript, Java, Ruby, Python, Angular, anything is going to be, you're going to be able to find good information on GitHub. So before we jump out and I kind of show you how to use GitHub, just take a look at some of these conversation starters that I found and notice how they feel a little bit better than like a generic, hey, saw you on LinkedIn, you have a great background. Some of these are better. Hey, Jamund, I noticed your recent JavaScript contributions on GitHub and was impressed with how active you've been. What inspired you to do the Node.js painting app? If I'm this guy, dude, I will respond to that because you're asking me about a Node.js project that I built. Super cool. Or you could say something like, hey, Jamund, I had a chance to scope out your work on GitHub and noticed you have 33 stargazers on Collab Paint.js. Was that your first Node.js app? So some really effective conversation starters can be found very quickly. So let's jump out and look at it. How does this all work? I'm going to go live to TalentBin and I'm on his profile. As you can see, I'm scrolling down. I'm on Android, but I want to go down to JavaScript. My job description is all about JavaScript. And I'm seeing here, okay, GitHub, Meetup, Lanyard. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Let's jump out to GitHub and take a look. So I'm gonna click on this little GitHub mouse. And now we're on this candidate's GitHub. And so right here, popular repositories. These are projects, these are applications, frameworks, libraries. This is code that this candidate is working with. And so we can see, oh, Collab Paint.js, 33 people have started. So that's one of my comments. Another thing that's really cool to do is click on repositories. And you can see right away, so these are all of this candidate's projects, and you can see JavaScript, updated 25 days ago, updated 3 days ago. And you get a sense of what this candidate is currently interested in, where his experience is, specific projects that you can reference in your outreach. And for me, a lot of my outreach to this candidate was based on this Collab Paint.js. What did I like about this? Well, when I clicked on it, I actually got to play with the application. And it seems pretty trivial, but this is a Node.js, which is backend JavaScript. And maybe this was his first attempt at building something with Node. And this is pretty cool. So like you can say, hey Jamun, I had a chance to check out Collab Paint.js. Was that your first Node project? Super fun. And that's going to give you a good response rate because you're referencing specific things that this candidate has built. Let's jump back in to the slide deck and look at some different data sources. We covered GitHub pretty good. Again, GitHub's very powerful. I'm going to have some resources for you. Our founder, Pete, he wrote a complete guide to recruiting and sourcing on GitHub. I'm going to have that for you here at the end of the presentation. You'll find it on our support page. Definitely worth a read. But let's jump in and look at some other data sources. So for this candidate, another data source that I really liked was Lanyard, which is a social conference directory, because I noticed that this candidate not only has gone to a bunch of front-end conferences, he's actually been a speaker at a lot of conferences, and so I found a lot of great data. And just listen to how good this sounds. My favorite one is this one down here. Hi Jamun, I saw your Lanyard profile and that you've presented on JavaScript and culture. So awesome. Where can I watch the presentation on culture? Anyways, I wanted to connect with you about a senior front-end opportunity at, and then I would go on with the rest of my message. But, the simple fact that this person cares about culture, he's presented on JavaScript, like this is an awesome candidate that I know would be an asset to my company. And this is a good outreach. I think this would engage this candidate. So I don't want to spend too much time jumping out to every single one of these data sources, but let's just look really quick. It's actually quite simple. On Lanyard, and you'll get to this through TalentBin. You'll just click on the Lanyard icon and you'll be on his personal profile here. And so you can see summary. You can see upcoming speaking appearances. That might be kind of cool. Go check them out live. Past events. We'll look at past events and we can see that he spoke at HTML5 Dev Conference. He's spoken at Node Summit, Full Stack in England. Pretty awesome stuff. So, again, a lot of different ways to leverage this. This site as well. Topics, you can kind of see what he's tracking: internet, mobile web, web design, web development. Pretty cool. And then also he's presented sessions on JavaScript, culture, and SVG. Awesome information. So let's jump back in. Again, use these conversation starters for yourself. Just copy this, tweak it for other candidates. Get fast, get good at jumping out and finding this information. So let's move on. Let's look at Meetup. Meetup's another great site for personal and professional interest. I actually couldn't find any personal interest for this candidate on Meetup. He was in only groups related to front-end development. So a lot of my conversation starters were based on his professional interests. So, hi Jamun, I was looking at JavaScript meetups in SF and noticed you're in a bunch of related groups. I'm reaching out because my company is hiring senior front-end devs who kill it with React.js and Node.js. So 2 JavaScript technologies, and I noticed that he's in 2 groups specific to React and Node, and so I'm going to get super specific and reference those in my outreach. Okay, let's move on. Let's jump to designer. So here we have a UI designer, candidate number 2, John Victorino. Again, the same process. We want to quickly find out, where am I going to focus? TalentBin has a lot of great sites that are focused for pulling in data for designers, right? And so Behance is probably the most popular site for designers to show off their work. And I found some good things to reference for this candidate. Hi, John. I had a chance to check out your work on Behance and was impressed with the exercise.com project, especially the mobile designs. Nice work. Hi, John. I noticed you're up to 195 project views on Behance. I really liked your work on Imageverse and wanted to connect with you about a full-time UI position. All of these are really good conversation starters. And it doesn't take 10 minutes to figure this out. Like, let's jump out to his Behance profile. And you're going to see that really quickly. I'm going to be looking at his work, right? Okay, exercise.com. This looks like a mobile app. It looks pretty clean. It looks like he did create an account flow, getting started, right? So if it looks good, like, be honest, but like, this looks pretty good, right? The logo is nice and dynamic. So I know what I'm going to comment on. I'm going to jump back in, and now I have my conversation starters. Hi John, I came across your work on Behance and just wanted to give you a shout out on the BrightGauge project. Looks like a lot of information and you organized it well, right? So if I go back and if I look at that, let's look at it. BrightGauge. Look at this. This is a lot of data that he figured out. He designed a nice hierarchy and he presented it well. So I bet he put a lot of thought into this project, and I'm gonna let him know that I can appreciate that. Pretty cool stuff. So let's move along. We don't have a ton of time, and I'm gonna kind of whip through these other candidates a little bit quicker, but use this information as a resource. Another good site for designers is CoreFloat. You can see the same type of thing as Behance. It's an online community for creative professionals to showcase their work. Hey John, had a chance to check out your work on CoreFloat. Love the Lego creation site. Also noticed you've been providing the creative direction for BrightGauge software. Big fan of the How It Works section. Dribbble, another great site for designers. I'm not going to go over all of these conversation starters, but go through the slide deck if you want. Take my work, use it, tweak it, modify it. I want to move through this pretty quickly. Ruby developers is actually pretty cool. Like, a lot of Ruby developers are on GitHub. So we talked about GitHub, but we have a site specific to Ruby developers, and I want to go over that one with you. And Quora and StackOverflow, these are good sites too. Quora is a question and answer site. So you can see here, I'm like, hey Miha, I came across your answers on Quora, 13,000 views, nice work. I liked your insight about interviewing at Asana. You up for an interview at, and I'm gonna say, you want to come interview here. And I'll show you how I did that. But let's talk about RubyGems. We've had a number of recruiters who have reported placements from leveraging RubyGems. And it's a pretty cool site. It's a way for developers to package Ruby programs, so the libraries, and distribute those programs to other developers. And so you can jump out to a candidate's RubyGems profile, and you can see that he has this OmniAuth Instagram, and it's been downloaded by 186,000 developers. So like, I'm gonna say, hey man, nice work. You built something that 186,000 people downloaded. That's awesome. And you can see my conversation starter is basically that. 185,000 downloads, nice work. And then I like to ask a question too. So how long did it take you to put that gem together? The thing about asking questions is that rather than saying, hey, I'm interested in learning more about you, you're actually proving it, right? Because you're asking a thoughtful question that shows you're interested in learning more. So I'd say stick to this framework. Comment, question. Comment on something specific, and then ask a thoughtful question. That's going to drive the highest response rate. So working through this pretty quick now. Don't want to just talk your ear off, but StackOverflow, another amazing site. This is probably the most popular question and answer site for programmers. And so the thing that I love most about this site is it ranks how helpful the developers are to other developers. So how many people have upvoted their answers. And that's really cool because you can jump out, and I'll show you. So we'll jump out to this again and take a look. So I'm on StackOverflow. I'm on this candidate StackOverflow, and I can see he's in the top 29%. Not bad. I've definitely seen better, but that might be something worth referencing. I can see that he has 30 answers, and he's reached 299,000 people, and his tags are Ruby, Shell, migration. So all great things to reference. Jump back into the slide deck here, and you can see, hey Miha, I saw on StackOverflow, on your StackOverflow bio, that you are a Ruby lover and have reached almost 300,000 devs with your answers. Your willingness to help others is awesome. I wanted to connect with you about a Ruby position, etc. So another great site to learn. I'm going to have a resource for you on this site as well. Candidate 4, moving along pretty quick. If you're doing anything with big data, Hadoop, data scientist, you're going to want to know about Kaggle. Kaggle's a site for people to compete. So they actually get to work with real data from businesses, and they get to compete to design efficient ways to leverage that data. And so like I really liked some of these comments that I was able to find here. Hi Gukong, hope you're having a good week. I was just on Kaggle and came across your profile and was very impressed. 3rd place out of 700 in the display advertising challenge. Congrats. Are you competing on any data challenges currently? So that's pretty cool outreach, you know. I had a lot of fun with this one too. Hey Gukong, how did Best Buy know I was going to build the 4K or buy the 4K TV on Cyber Monday? Had a chance to check out your work on Kaggle and was very impressed. 1st place in the Best Buy comp. Congrats, you really know your data. So jump out when you're on this person's profile, or if you're on a different candidate's profile and you see Kaggle and you're looking for a data scientist, definitely jump out and see which competitions he's competed in, what he placed, and then reference that in your outreach. One more example, I know this is running a little bit long, but DevOps, sysadmin type of candidate. This can be super challenging to recruit for because they go by a bunch of different titles, but TalentBin has a lot of sites that are going to give you great information. So a lot of times for sysadmins, we want to know that they have Unix, Linux experience, and we have a great question and answer site for Unix and Linux. So let's jump out to that. I'll come back to this personal site in a minute. First, let's look at Unix and Linux and jump out to this candidate. This is just like Stack Overflow, so you're going to see a lot of these question and answer sites come from Stack Exchange, and it's just different verticals. So Stack Exchange will have something for math, something for Unix, something for Linux, and it's basically the same thing where we can see, okay, wow, Michael's in the top 0.42% of all the users on this Unix and Linux site, and his answers have reached 1.8 million people. I'm definitely going to leverage this information in my outreach. So if we jump back into the slide deck here, you can see, hi Michael, I saw that you have 300 plus answers on Unix and Linux, that you are in the top 1%. Really impressed with how helpful you've been to the Unix Linux community. So super personalized. I think it's differentiated. I think it's rare that you'll find recruiters who mention specific things like this. So if you can become one of those recruiters, you'll become one of the best recruiters in terms of driving responses and making passive candidate placements. One last thing to talk about here is, I skipped over this, but anytime you see the www icon on a candidate profile, all that means is that this is a personal site that they've linked to from one of these other sites that TalentBin actually crawls. And so these can be actually really good personal sites. You can find resume-ish data. You can find blogs or links to blogs. And so for this candidate, it was actually a pretty good personal site. If I remember, I was born Michael, but I changed my name legally to make it shorter and more logical. That's pretty funny. I'll use that in my outreach because it's just like, it's different, right? Like not too many people legally change their name so that it's more logical. So again, don't be afraid to click out to all of these different sites. It's one of the takeaways. We're getting to the end here, but takeaways: use the skills section to quickly determine the best data sources for each candidate. Number 2, explore new sites. The more you jump out to these sites, you're gonna get really fast. Like you'll get your personalization down to a minute or 2 if you start to experiment and use these different websites. Number 3, find a personalized conversation starter in 1 to 2 minutes, so you have time to reach out to 20 plus passive candidates. Don't get frustrated. Like don't spend 10 minutes on one candidate on one web profile. Like if you jump out and you're stuck, come back, jump out to one of the other top data sources and just get something quickly so that you can still reach out to 20 plus passive candidates. You have to hit this number. At the end of the day, it's still going to be somewhat of a numbers game. And then number 4, use TalentBin resources as you source. This is a lot to memorize, and I would say, come back to this slide deck. There's a bunch of conversation starters. Maybe write those down, tweak them, and kind of just use everything that we have on our support portal. Just reference it. Like as you get stuck, come back. Like if you are having a tough time, we have an email personalization guide where you can say, oh, today I'm sourcing for Python, so let's jump to the Python section and get some ideas. Or, you know, we have some great, I mentioned this one, the secret sauce personalized candidate outreach. And I will link to all of these resources. You'll find links to these underneath this slide deck on this support page. So the other big one I just want to touch on real quick is we have a new project we're doing here, where if you want to have your template, if you have the courage to put your template out there, we will evaluate it. The TalentBin team here will evaluate your template, and we'll tell you, is your template an A? Is it an A? Is it a B, C, D? Maybe it's an F. Maybe we have a lot of work to do. So send us your templates. I'm gonna have a link for you to do this. We'll take our insight. We see recruiters, we see which recruiters are making the most placements. We get to work with them on their templates. We can help in this department, so don't be afraid. Send us your emails and get a grade, and let's help you get some placements. So that's all I have for you today. Hope this is helpful. Again, really just want to push you to leverage all of the data that TalentBin gives you. Don't be afraid to jump out to new data sources. Get quick. Over time, it shouldn't take long. If you do this for like a month or two, you'll be able to get it down to a minute or two, and you'll be hitting your numbers and making placements. If you get stuck, you know, passive candidate recruiting is hard. If you get stuck with using TalentBin, if you feel like your response rate is low, reach out to your product specialist, whether it's myself or one of my colleagues. Give us an email. We love to work with recruiters who are engaged, who want to improve their response rate. We love working with you the most because that's the most exciting for us. So, and the other thing too is check out some of the past webinars. We cover a lot of things. So the automated follow-up campaigns, how to write a perfect first email. You're going to see a ton of information. So check out the other webinars. Real quick, I can show you how to get to those webinars. So if you're on TalentBin, you can come up here on this left-hand edge and click support. And you're going to see here on the support page, you have Get Help and Learn. Learn is where you're going to find the webinars, and they're right here. So we have 11 webinars now. Take some time, check out these webinars, great resources, and let us know. Let me know if there's anything you want us to cover in the future. Shoot us a note. We love doing these webinars, so look forward to hearing from you in the future. Talk soon. Bye.